Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us. Thank you for joining us on the program. The book we're talking about is Televisionaries, Inside the Chaos and Innovation of the Digital Revolution by author Marc Tayer, our guest on the program. It captures the full arc of the digital television revolution, featuring the engineers, the entrepreneurs, and media titans who made it happen. Marc wrote Televisionaries following a 30-year career in media, communications technology business. He joined General Instrument's New York corporate headquarters in 1985, transferred to its San Diego-based VideoCipher Division in 1987. 2 years later, he was appointed core team leader and project manager for the company's trailblazing digital television project, a role for which he received an Emmy Award. Marc served as VP of Global Marketing upon GI's acquisition by Motorola in 2000. He then co-founded 2 digital video tech startups while working on Cablevision's Voom HDTV venture along the way. Received his BA from Williams College, his MBA from Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. Currently resides in San Diego. Televisionaries, his first book, and he's with us on This Week in America. Marc, welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us.
Thanks very much, Rick. It's great to be here.
What a really fascinating and interesting story. For so many people, we just go to television and turn it on and enjoy it with our new digital HD TVs, that type of thing, and all the different channels we have and all the conveniences brought about by digital. We don't really remember back. And let's go back to 1989 when this whole project started. Talk about the state of television in 1989. I think HDTV was just sort of something we'd heard about, sort of this fuzzy concept we heard at the time. What was TV like in 89 when this project began for you?
Well, it was certainly a much different world. In the United States, TV was becoming very dominated by cable. Cable TV operators, the big ones at the time were TCI and Time Warner and several others, Cox Communications. They had about 95% market share of TV households. And the other few percent was the big dish, C-band satellite TV market, which in some ways was sort of a precursor of the internet because you had the freedom to roam around different satellites in the sky and so on. But all of those signals at the time were based on analog television, which means analog meaning a continuous wave, the way that TV was originally invented. And HDTV, very few people had heard of it at the time. NHK, which was and still is the Japan state-owned broadcaster, had really come up with the idea and was developing a lot of technology around HDTV. So some people in the industry had heard about HDTV. A few people had even seen demonstrations, and the pictures looked spectacular. But the problem was what NHK in Japan had developed was an analog HDTV system. So it turned out to be sort of a dead end in that regard.
Yeah, and I think I read in the book, and the book is called Televisionaries. Marc Tayer, our guest on the program. His website is marctayer.com. That's MarcTayer.com. Or you go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on directly. The book is Televisionaries, available all across the country. I remember reading that with the technology that we're coming up with in Japan, what satellite dishes actually, instead of getting smaller, would have gotten larger.
That's right. The reason was that the analog HDTV technology that NHK had invented took up a lot of bandwidth. Bandwidth is a basic concept in communications technology that sort of translates into a lot of shelf space, a lot of spectrum. And because it took up so much spectrum, this analog HD technology would have actually forced even bigger dish sizes. And that presented us in San Diego at General Instrument with a huge problem because the satellite TV business was a very good business for us at the time. Remember, this was before DirecTV and the whole small dish business launched.
Right.
But we were encrypting the signals for HBO and Showtime and CNN and really all the other programming services to secure their content so that they could get paid for their content. and the dish was already very large. It was about a 10-foot diameter dish that about 3 million homes in America had at the time. And if the NHK analog HD system had been successful, and a lot of people thought it might become the next generation of consumer electronics, it would have meant even bigger dish sizes, which could have killed our business.
Yeah, as they're struggling in Japan with HDTV, and I understand a couple of European countries were working on it as well. A gentleman by the name of Jerry Heller with your company, with General Instruments, said, why don't we develop our own HDTV solution? Maybe we can do it better. Did he have any idea at the time when he said that actually you're not only going to do it better, you're going to be based out of San Diego, a real have a global impact on television?
Well, that's exactly right. At the time, it almost seemed a bit surreal that with Japan having invested so much, and then Europe in response invested reputedly up to $1 billion to keep the Japanese system out. And again, Europe's HDTV system was based on analog technology. And then out of the blue, Jerry Heller and his colleague Wu Peik, who worked with me here in San Diego, thought maybe we can do it better. And because they were highly trained, these were PhDs from MIT that were working for General Instrument here in San Diego. They were highly trained in the art of digital communications technology. They thought maybe with some of the breakthroughs we have in our labs, it's possible to have an all-digital HDTV system.
And this was done... Yeah, and this was done very quietly, right? It was almost like a top secret project. I don't think anybody realized in San Diego, California, United States of America, they actually were working on this technology.
That's right. For the first year or so, it was a secret project in our labs. And we weren't 100% confident yet that it would really play out because it was pretty revolutionary technology. And what happened was, at the time, I was working in business development as a young business guy, and I was setting up a joint venture in Japan, ironically, and came back from a trip after that joint venture was established and was told by our division president, hey, you have a new job. We have this technology in our lab, and we want you to figure out how to get it out of the lab and turn it into a profitable business for the company.
And then that was the start of your involvement. You go and you talk to your fiance, now wife, and say, basically, this is going to be revolutionary. I'm really not quite sure where we're going with this, but I really want to be in this project on the ground floor. So you really didn't know where it was going at that point. This was a real experience for you as well.
Yes, it very much was. It felt like we were onto something big, but the specifics of it really were still unknown at the time. We didn't know exactly what shape or form it was going to take over the years. And remember, that was 25 years ago. And as I was writing this book, it occurred to me, when I finally finish writing this book, it's probably going to be about the 25th anniversary of that invention of digital TV in San Diego. And here we are 25 years later.
And it's amazing because digital is so much a part of our lives, and we'll talk about where we are with digital now and where you think we're going in the future. But back to 1989 when this started, you say in the book is called Televisionaries. Our guest on the program is Marc Tayer. That's Marctayer. His website is marctayer.com. You can link on to Marc's website by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. You said the beginning is often the most exciting part of the process. Talk about the infancy stages of this. This had to be exciting once you start piecing this together and realize this really is going to change the way people all across the world watch television.
We were hopeful that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Those early days are very idealistic, and you're sort of naive, and you don't really know how many hurdles there are in the road ahead. with political issues and competitive issues and financial issues. And you just feel like, wow, there's no flaws in this yet, because it's just at the conception and idea stage. So it feels really good because you feel like you're onto something big, but you're sort of clueless as to all the hurdles in the road ahead.
Which is probably a good thing, isn't it? Because like you said, you're just sort of naively going into this thinking this is going to work, and you're going to do everything you can to make it successful.
It certainly has its positives. Like any thing that turns out to be pretty big like that, if you really knew the challenges and how much it would cost to succeed, and how many hurdles would get thrown up in front of you, corporations might never take it on in the first place. And this was, at the time, General Instrument was a Fortune 500 company, so it was a fairly large technology conglomerate. And one of the themes of the book is also innovation within a large company and how that can be sustained over time. But in this case, with digital TV, we were basically like a startup within a large company, and it was very exciting.
The book is called Televisionaries. Marc Tayer is our guest on the program. And just explaining the management concept at General Instrument, they had a core team, and you were the manager of that core team, correct? You were in charge of getting this project ready to take it out into the marketplace.
That's right. I was what was called the core team leader, which meant it was very much of a coordination job between the different departments of the company. We had manufacturing and operations. Of course, there was engineering, there was the marketing and sales and business development. And so the core team leader was responsible for pulling all those ends together and getting it through a phased process of approval, where first you have to convince management that it's a worthwhile investment, and then you go to the next phase until you eventually get into production.
And along the way, you talk in the book about the second stage, which is an on-off, a one-off prototype. Third stage, when you actually have HBO that comes on board. Talk about how exciting that was, because, okay, now we're taking it into the real world, and it's working.
That was huge for us, because everyone knows how important HBO is today to the content world, with Showtime and Netflix. Yes. Also in that same category. But even back then, 25 years ago, HBO was a major force in the industry. And they were a customer of ours for our analog satellite TV technology, but they got pretty excited about this idea of digital. And remember, this was not for HDTV. At the time, HDTV was getting all the headlines because it was this new sort of sexy thing. But it really took another 15 years until about 2005 or so for HDTV to really take hold in the market.
Yeah, and so many people use those terms interchangeably, HDTV and digital TV, without really getting into a technical description. They are distinct, right?
Yes, well, HDTV is a subset. In our case, we invented digital HDTV, but digital TV is a more generalized concept of just converting TV into bits, zeros and ones, instead of the waves of the analog world. And so what happened was these same guys, Jerry Heller, Wu Paik, and the team I was part of, realized that if we could do a digital HDTV signal in the same spectrum that an analog signal occupied, then we could do multiple digital standard definition signals. And so we realized early on that would be our big business in the 90s, because the big difference was that consumer households would not need to purchase new television sets in order to get digital standard definition. They would have to have a new cable or satellite box to convert it for their TV, but they didn't need a new TV. And so what HBO was field testing back in the early 90s for us that they were very excited about was not digital HDTV. It was actually digital standard definition. And what had happened was Bob Zitter, who was really the chief technical guy at HBO, and I interviewed him for this book. HBO was running into a problem with growth where their growth was starting to flatline, and they needed to find a way to grow again. And they had so much content, but a limited shelf space or bandwidth to put that content on. So when they heard that we could create for them with our technology up to 10 digital standard definition channels in the same spectrum or space as one analog channel, they thought that was an opportunity to create all sorts of new genres for their content and re-stimulate growth. And that's why they were so excited about field testing the system with us.
The book is Televisionaries. Marc Tayer, our guest on the program. That's MarcTayer. His website is marctayer.com. Information, of course, available at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. So that's why, like local TV stations, all of a sudden they have like three other channels in addition to the one they had before. And that was because of what you were able to do with digital.
Right. Once the TV signal is transformed into the zeros and ones of the computer world, in other words, it's digital, you have so much more flexibility and efficiency than what you had in the analog world. And so part of that was these digital standard definition multiplexes. Another huge impact was it introduced the first real competition to cable through digital standard definition. So Hughes, which became DirecTV, Hughes Communications at the time was actually owned by General Motors. And the Hughes division wanted to launch these very high-powered satellites. But the problem they had was they only had 27 satellite transponders or channels. So with analog TV, they would have been able to have a very small satellite dish with their high-power satellite, but they would have only had 27 channels, one signal per satellite channel. But with digital, they could multiply that by 10 and really compete with cable. So the digital standard definition technology enabled the first competitors to cable to enter the market, like DirecTV and later the Dish Network, founded by Charlie Ergen, who's one of the media titans highlighted in the book Televisionaries. And then later, it allowed the big telephone companies like AT&T and Verizon to enter the TV market, again, not through high definition, but through digital standard definition with AT&T's UVerse service and with Verizon's Fios service. To the point where today, cable has more like 50% market share versus the 95% market share they had before we invented digital. So it allowed lots of competition, which consumers are benefiting from even today.
In addition to more channels, better quality pictures, also new consumer behavior. Talk a little bit about where we are now and where you think we're going to go. Cord cutting has become part of the vocabulary now. Everybody's talking about cord cutting and being able to cut the cable bill. That's only due because of what you guys did at General Instrument starting in 1989 with digital.
Yes, this 25-year evolution has just been an incredible wave of innovation. And let's just back up a minute because you mentioned consumer behavior. Another of the very, very important derivatives of the digital TV invention before the internet really took hold, which is related to the current cord-cutting trend, one of the very important derivatives was video on demand and the digital video recorder, or DVR.
Yes.
And both those technologies are in a majority of U.S. households today. And they allowed a dramatic shift in the consumer viewing paradigm. away from the scheduled broadcast that TV had been based on, where you have to be home at 8 p.m. to watch this show, or you have to stay up until 11:30 to watch Johnny Carson or then David Letterman. With VOD, and especially with the DVR, it allowed consumers to schedule their own content and watch whenever they want. And it's a huge benefit across the board for consumers.
Yeah, and you just read now that Verizon is offering what they're calling a skinny bundle, which basically it's getting close to what a la carte, where, and I don't know whether it will come to that because of TV rights, that type of thing, but where we basically can program our own TV station in our own homes.
Yes, it's getting, all of this benefit is accruing to the consumer. And so fast forwarding from what we were just talking about with VOD and the DVR, allowing consumers to watch when they want, today, now they can also watch almost wherever they want. So the place of viewing has shifted. And that's a result of mobile devices, such as laptops and tablets and smartphones. But what you're talking about with cord cutting is a phenomenon we're living through every day right now. So with the internet becoming increasingly broadband, meaning higher speed into the home, video or TV over the internet is finally starting to reach its heyday with services like Netflix and Amazon Instant Video and Hulu and many others. Sony is just launching a service called PlayStation View, and Dish Network is launching Sling TV. So all these internet-based services are popping up, giving the consumers incredible flexibility to the point where if they want, they can disconnect or cord cut from their cable or satellite multi-channel package and build their own package using the internet. And competition is a great thing, because what that's forcing now is what you just mentioned, the Verizon new packaging, where they're giving consumers more flexibility with smaller packages, not a one-size-fits-all sort of fat package that's relatively expensive. So they're reacting to the cord-cutting phenomenon, because the last thing they want is cord-cutting to become a major trend. Right now it's more of a minor trend. And so the service providers like Verizon and also Time Warner Cable and Comcast are all starting to react with more flexible packaging.
The book is called Televisionaries. Our guest on the program, Marc Tayer, he was there from the beginning of the digital revolution, was part of an important part of the digital revolution. About a minute left in the program, and in the book Televisionaries, you talk about Ultra HD will grab most of the headlines, and you say there are other technologies, less sexy technologies out there that we should be watching for in the future. What should we be sort of, as consumers, looking for?
Well, Ultra HD is the next generation of a big leap forward in home entertainment. But like with HD, it's going to take a very long time to be more than just an early adopter technology, like maybe about 10 years. So I think in the 2020s, we'll see Ultra HD with these huge panels and curved walls of video, where it's almost more realistic than 2020 vision. But some of the other technologies that are taking place are relate to much higher speed broadband internet into the home. And the cable operators like Comcast are rolling that out, and also the DSL and fiber optic companies like Verizon and AT&T Uverse and others. They're all, competition is really just a great force for innovation. And so what's happening is higher and higher speeds are giving consumers the benefit of more things they can watch and more choice through their broadband internet connection.
That's why the book Televisionaries is such an interesting read, because we know a lot about the history of the computer, the internet revolution. Sort of lost has been this digital revolution, and you can read about it in the book Televisionaries. Inside the Chaos and Innovation of the Digital Revolution. You talk about the CEOs that were involved in this. You talk about the tycoons, the media tycoons that were involved in this. Fascinating in the early days, and Marc was right there. The book Televisionaries. The guest on This Week in America, the author of the book is Marc Tayer. That's Marctayer. The website is marctayer.com, and you go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, to link on. Marc, it's been a pleasure having you on the program. So much more to talk about. Hopefully we'll get a chance to do that in the future. Thank you for being with us on the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Rick, and it was a pleasure from my side as well.
It has been a pleasure, and every time I turn on the television and watch everything or watch on a tablet, I'll be thinking of you. Thankfully, you were there back in 1989 with the core team that got all the technology today where it is today and where we're going in the future. The book is Televisionaries. You're listening to This Week in America. All the information on Marc available at our website, thisweekinamerica.us.